When I think of 3D modeling, I can't help but think of my dad's old hobby, which was three-dimensional photography. Now, he had this old thing which he gave me. This was made in 1904. At least it was patented, it says here. 1904. But the idea is you put two images behind here and then you see it in 3D, much like today's VR glasses, which look like this. Now what I made here is I put two images of a pyrite on a sheet of paper, which I just wrapped around these foam core things, and then I slip this on, and I've got a contemporary version of this old stereopticon here. That's what they used to call it. Maybe they still call it stereopticon. Now, right now, what I'm most interested in is modeling in 3D a pyrite cube. So I did that in a free software called Blender, and then pulled it into this free software called Scratch to show it off. And I can do things like I can make it go from smooth to rough, clicking on these buttons. And this pyrite that I have here, that I modeled in Blender, is the same one that I took photos of here. The left eye is going to see more of the left side of the cube, and the right eye sees more of the right side of the cube. Can you see here? You see more of the left side with the left eye. Now this is the one that I took photos of. They naturally come in these cube configurations, and you can see there's one cube embedded in another, and then a third cube embedded in the embedded cube, and it's smaller, turned at an angle, and that's the one I took a photo of. So I just used my phone and took a photo of this from one angle, and then I moved the phone over a few inches, and that gave me another angle, just like your two eyes are a few inches apart, and so everything you see from two different, slightly different perspectives. So I printed up the photos, and then you can view them here, and it comes out to be one 3D image. I've got other pyrites, and these are pretty shiny. And this one I really like because it has all the different textures of striations. It's very raw and rough. And that's what I like to model in Scratch, because it looks more real. When I smooth it out here, it doesn't look as real to me as when you have all these little imperfections, like you have in a real pyrite that's not been polished. Just the way it is in the rough. Now this code is very simple. I call it, by the way, imperfection is the digital perfection. I heard that somewhere, and then I couldn't exactly remember how to say that. Somebody told me here that it's imperfection is the digital perfection. This guy, RoboStew. That's what I was looking for. So to make it look real in a digital model, you have to add those imperfections. So this is 3D modeling in a very simple way. The code in Scratch is simple. Basically, I modeled this pyrite with all the rough spots on it, and I did another one that just has the smooth. So the smooth costumes, just imported them all, and they look smooth and they turn gradually. You have 250 images. Could have been 360, one for each degree turn, but I didn't. I did 250. And then once you have all those costumes pulled in, then with just a few blocks of code here, I can fade in, kind of use the ghost effect they call it in Scratch, and I can fade into the rough pyrite, which has the same angles, exactly the same model, except it has the rough stuff added. 250 costumes, which I just uploaded to Scratch. This free software, with just a little bit of code, it turns it, and then when you hit one of these buttons, it fades it in from rough to smooth. Now, to make the model itself, to get those 250 images, I use Blender, which is also free, and in fact the default shape is a cube, which you can edit up to add all these textures and imperfections and such. You can rotate it, this little button, like that. You can add a cube, just click on a region, and pull up another cube. Move it back, like that. Anyway, you get the general idea. I have a whole separate video that I did on how to put textures on this and animate it. And then you end up with all these little images on your computer that you can just pull right up into Scratch. So that's how I think about 3D modeling of something beautiful in nature. It's amazing that nature produces these perfect little cubes, or sometimes they're just cubes, and sometimes they have a little cube embedded in them, and it's pyrite, iron pyrite, also known as fool's gold because it has that gold coloration and shimmer. And then when people in the old days were looking for gold to get rich, they thought, oh, I found gold, and of course it was just this pyrite. Usually not in a cube format, but in a rough little bits of what look like gold, so it's called a fool's gold. This iron pyrite is iron sulfide, iron and sulfur, which form a crystal lattice structure. With these two slightly different perspectives on the crystal structure printed and viewed with the viewer, we get 3D. And see my other video for modeling cubes in Scratch, and then modeling like pyrite like this in Blender, which gives you something a bit like this. Now you can duplicate the whole cube sprite in Scratch and then separate them a little bit, and you start both cubes at slightly different angles so that you can see more of the left side of the cube with the left eye, and then you can pull it up on your phone and you're all ready to put some VR glasses on. Then it really looks like the cube is right there in front of you. Now you have a good start in how to do what they call virtual reality 3D.